Clint Cosgrove, Eric Lammers back for another episode of Coach's Corner. This is number 5. We have another extremely special guest, my good friend, Tony Sorrentino, assistant wide receiver coach with the Minnesota Vikings. But Tony also has a background in college football, grew up the son of a football coach, and has a wonderful story. So we're excited to have him on today. Tony, man, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Appreciate you guys having me. Big time, man.
Yeah, big time. You're big time. You're in the league, man. We got NFL guy on now.
First NFL guest here.
Let's go.
Coach's Corner going places.
No,
finally. It's about time.
Been a journey, bro.
It has been a journey, man.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll learn more about that. But I guess we'll start with how we know each other. Back in what year did you come to Minnesota, Tony?
2009.
2009. So Tony comes in, and I did not know him, and I don't think we talked for the first couple days, did we?
Nah, you were too cool, man. You didn't love me.
No, I just didn't know who you were. I was like, who's the new guy in the office? Nobody gave a heads up, and you had replaced one of our good friends, and obviously over time we became, really good friends, and we've stayed in touch. We lived down the street from each other when we were coaching at Minnesota. Lots of great stories, many we won't share. Some, you and Lammers would have a good time making fun of me together. I'm sure you will at some point. But
for sure.
Let's start with Minnesota. So we meet at Minnesota. You came in with Jed Fish, who came from he was coming from the Broncos at the time, I believe.
Yes.
And I was working on defense. You were working on offense. And like I said, we didn't hit it off from the first days, but I think, we became very close shortly after. Just let's go through, because you've had jobs, anything from high school coach to you've been in the NFL before, back to college. You've been at Tennessee, Miami, Jacksonville Jaguars, a little bit of everything. So just give me kind of your path, and your dad's a coach too, and that's obviously where it starts, but give me your path to Minnesota when we first met. Tell me how you got into the business, why you got into the business, and just a little bit of your background leading up to when we met at Minnesota.
Yeah. So from New Jersey originally, my dad, high school coach. So I've been around football my whole life. I played football, high school in Division III, loved it. Football has completely changed my life. And the course, who knows really what I would have done without football, whether in high school, college, and then obviously for my career. So long story short, played Division III, knew I wanted to be a coach. I never wanted to stop playing, but it just was what it was at that point. Was able to get on staff with my dad right fresh out of college at 22. So I coached my dad in high school, and the dream was always college, or, at that time you didn't think even pro was an opportunity. So college was always the dream. So I coached a few years of high school, and then Jed, who went to my dad's high school. So I've known Jed since I was 7 years old, Jed Fish. He was making his run in the ranks. He's like, hey man, you got to get into college somehow. So I called my head coach at TCNJ at the time, and he's just like, yeah, come coach linebackers. Obviously I'm an offensive guy, played defense in high school. Coach linebackers was awesome. Learned a lot about the other side of the ball, which later on helped my career offensively. And I was just doing like back then, you get paid for camps as a high school, like D3 college coach. So doing the camp circuit. Jed gets a break from Denver Broncos. He gets the offensive coordinator job at the Minnesota Golden Gophers, where Tim Brewster's the head coach. And, him and my dad stayed connected, stayed close. And he was always like, hey, whatever I can do to repay you. My dad was just like, it's over for me, I'm done. But if you can help, my son any which way. So Jed hired me as the quality control coach in 2009, where obviously me and Clint met, he talked about. And then from there, Jed left to go to Seattle after year one. Jeff Horton comes in. Clint's dad was on the staff, the defense coordinator of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I'm thinking, Jed leaving, my connection's gone. The Cosgrove family put a great word in for me with Jeff Horton, who I remain super close with to this day. Jeff Horton gets promoted to the head coach. He promotes me to the quarterback coach in 2010, promotes Thomas Hammock to offensive coordinator, play caller. So it all comes full circle. Unfortunately, in Minnesota, our time runs out. I go to University of Miami with Jed Fish. Awesome. Al Golden, great opportunity there. Jed becomes the offensive coordinator of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He brings me, so I'm there with Jed for 2 years as assistant receivers, quality control. Jed leaves to go to Michigan. Greg Olson comes in, promotes me to just assistant receivers. And then in 16, Jerry Sullivan was our receiver coach. Me and him had a great work relationship for 4 years. He kind of let me run the room in 16. Unfortunately, we got let go then. And at that time, I had a connection through Tennessee, through Gus Bradley, the head coach of Jacksonville Jaguars. Butch Jones calls me up. We go to Tennessee. I'm only at Tennessee for a year in the SEC, but learned a lot. Back into recruiting, kind of Twitter game completely changed. Those 4 years out from the University of Miami to Tennessee was it was completely different in that short period of time, and now it's even more. Unfortunately, we got let go there. I met Monty Kiffin when my time in Jacksonville, so I'm out, fired back-to-back years, and I'm like, man, I actually took a high school job in New Jersey for like 6 days. Not many people know that, but I was like, what am I going to do? I don't have a job. I didn't have a job. And, fired back-to-back years, people want to hire people who have won. So that was a tough transition. It was tough. I mean, it was like, oh, man. But Monty Kiffin, Charlie Weiss Jr., Lane Kiffin hired me. They said, hey, you're going to come down as an analyst, offensive analyst at FAU, Boca Raton. So we go learn from Lane Kiffin. It's July, right before camp starts. And Lane, good relationship with Lane, nothing great. He just brings me in his office and said, hey, I'm going to make you my director of football operations. I think you can handle it. My dad trusts you. And I'm like, I'm a coach. He's like, no, I know you're a coach, but, Lane and Charlie kind of both called the offense. They were very heavily in the offense. He's just like, I want you. He's like, you want to be a head coach? I'm like, yeah, I want to be a head coach. He's like, this is the best way to learn. So did the operations thing. And honestly, I thought I loved it because Lane, he was awesome. He was just like, if I don't like something, I'm going to tell you, but I trust you. So I was like, okay, I kind of saw it from the coaching perspective for the staff and all that stuff. And I had some great guys that worked with me that really wanted to be in operations. So I said, hey, this is not the end goal for me. Take this and run with it. And we kind of just had a good working relationship. It was actually really good for my career. Then I was able to take a step back on the offensive side and sit in on defensive meetings and hear how things happened. And Lane's offense was super fast and no huddle. So the NFL background that I had was like, okay, learning this college background. Thomas Hammock gets the Northern Illinois job, who we were together at Minnesota with Clint. He calls me up. He hires me as the tight ends coach, inside receivers, first time coaching tight ends. Awesome. Was there in 2019, 20 receivers pass game coordinator. 21, we end up winning the MAC receivers pass game coordinator. 2022 happens. Chris O'Hara was with me at University of Miami, and then he came to Jacksonville in 14, 15, 16. So we were together. When we left Jacksonville, he went to the Washington Redskins, became super tight with Kevin O'Connell. The Washingtons got let go. Kevin O'Connell went to the Rams. Chris went back to Jacksonville with Jay Gruden. They got let go that year. So Chris goes to the Rams with Kevin O'Connell. They win the Super Bowl. Kevin O'Connell's the head coach, the Minnesota Vikings. Chris O'Hara, Kevin O'Connell called me up. Get an opportunity to go to the Vikings. So what I tell my players, what I tell everybody, it's all about one thing. It's all about relationships. Obviously football, but it's all about relationships. It's all about who you know, when you know them, doing a good job no matter what your job is. I still have a relationship with Lane Kiffin to this day because I said, first of all, I'm not going to say no to anything when the head coach asks me to do something. And it's just an opportunity. I believe uncomfortable equals great growth. I was uncomfortable being the director of football operations, but I think I grew from that, if that makes sense. So being able to see the whole thing. I've been at the Vikings for a couple months now. It's been awesome.
Dude. Wow.
Yeah, so
that's incredible because you know how it is when you get into this business, like, especially before you're in it, like it's glamorized and you think it's all sunshine and rainbows and you tell your story and you share just, how you got to where you are today, the steps you've gone through, the jobs you've had, how you grew up. Like, dude, you got released back-to-back years.
Yeah.
And you haven't, and we've talked about this before, Eric, like you haven't made it in coaching until you've gotten fired. There's coaches that the coaches that haven't been fired, if they're in it for long enough, they will get fired, and there's so much out of your control. The thing that I find really cool with your story is like, you never wavered. Like you knew you wanted to do football, like you loved it, you were passionate about it, and you were going to do anything to stay in it.
Appreciate it.
Tell me, yeah, man. Like it's you got to be resilient. Like you got to have a short memory. And you put in all of these hours. And this is, part of what we want to do is we want to tell, humanize the whole football coaching thing. And like, you put in all of these hours, you've got a family of your own, you get let go. So much is out of your control. Like, was there ever a point where you're like, you know what, this maybe this isn't what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out of this, or did you never waver?
No, you like to say, oh, I never wavered, but a good amount of times, because you see, late 20s, early 30s, you're seeing your friends, your peers, not in football, live quote unquote normal lives, making good money. Hey, bought a house, have a vacation house, and I'm like, oh, am I doing the wrong thing? I'm a good recruiter. Can I just go into sales and figure this thing out? But then I just, just me personally, this is me. And this was hard to talk to my father. I'm like, I can't just be a high school coach. And I'm like, I don't mean that in any negative connotation at all. I was like, I like moving around. I like meeting new people. I like having Clint Cosgrove, who's one of my best friends, living in Chicago, and the Cosgrove family, and knowing them. And, no matter where we end up in our career, oh, I know somebody there. That's just me personally. I've gotten, but to say I haven't wavered, no, it's like, man, fired back-to-back years, not always necessarily getting the job that you want, or maybe in your mind you think you deserve. It's like, hey, what can I do better? And nobody's going to tell you in this profession, right, wrong, or different, hey, you should have done this, or because everybody's path is so much different. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. Some people are like, hey, I know nobody wants to hear you got lucky, but it's like, hey, I always say there's no job too big or too small. You just got to go to work every day. Like you said, snap it clear like a player. Hey, I got to get better today. Be constant, never ending self-improvement. I truly believe that. I know but that's what gets you through the early mornings, the late nights, the things that, can get your mind going a million different ways. Cause it will.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fascinating story. I mean, it's just perseverance and everything in between. And I find the, the Florida Atlantic story really fascinating. But what I really want to talk about before we get into that a little bit, during your career, did you meet your wife and have kids and things like that? Like, when did that all start happening in your career?
Right. So when moving around? Great question. So University of Miami around 2012, we really started, talking and getting. And then when I got to the NFL in 2013, she was working in New York City, pharmaceutical sales. I was in Jacksonville. She had
making that money.
She had an opportunity to get transferred to Jacksonville, and that's when it was like, okay, this is getting real. And so we got married in 2014. Clint couldn't make the wedding.
Where was I?
I don't know where you were.
Bali.
You couldn't make it. Well, you got married in Hawaii. I couldn't make that one.
Yeah, I know. I got married on 4th of July, so you could make my wedding. And
should have paid my airfare. No, and then so yeah, we're going on 8 years in June, and then we started having a kid. My oldest is 5, so we got a few, and it's been great. But it's a
how and so when. Did she know, I guess, because what we like to talk about here and what we've talked about with our previous guests, just the support that comes from your significant other through this career. Because I mean, having somebody behind you that can support you through the ups and downs and through as you're moving across the country from 100%. Florida to Illinois to Minnesota and all these things like that. Did she know exactly what she was getting into? Is she been obviously?
No,
how has it affected your family, the moving around and things like that?
Right. I always say, she met me in this profession. So she, they never know what they're, again, no negative. Nobody knows we don't even know what we're getting into.
Yeah, no kidding.
But she met me in this profession. And, the hardest thing, the thing that is, we were 4 years in the NFL when we first started. And the NFL life is different than college life. And in Jacksonville, we were able to make strong connections with the people on the staff. 4 years is my longest I've been anywhere. So maybe in my brain, it's just, the connections, but no, the friendships we've made. And then you go to, and then you bounce around a little bit in college, and college is, you're on the road recruiting, you're on, work is, the NFL work doesn't stop either, but when you're home, you can do, I'm just going to go to the office, do computer, my VPN. In college, you're on the phone constantly, you're texting, you're tweeting, it's taken a whole nother level. So it's definitely tough, and then you're on the road, and it's tough for it's tough. It's just tough for everybody.
Right.
Then you had kids, and then you're saying, where are you living? Living in different places all over the country, different college towns. Whereas opposed to the NFL, it's the majority are cities, if that makes sense. So no, it's definitely tough. The support system from her and our families, it has been great, and that makes it. Never want to say easier, but it makes it easier.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, your family's incredible, Tony. Like I love your family, and they're always there for you, and
always.
That's a big. They get it too.
Huge. My parents. When I got to Minnesota in 2009, my dad retired from teaching and coaching, and they were driving. They drove to the Air Force. Syracuse played away. They drove to Air Force, and my dad's now 74 years. I'm like, Dad, you cannot drive from New Jersey to Minnesota. You cannot do like for a game. They stay longer with but I'm like, it's crazy. So but no, my sisters, their husbands, their families, the support that my family's given me, it makes it easier. A lot like, obviously Clint's, our families are tight. Our moms still connect and stay in touch. So it's been a journey for all of us. And I never say, woe is me in this. Sometimes, you got to vent out and you got to talk to people, and you always have to be careful. I'm like, listen, I'm not woe is me. I know what what I've gotten into, but sometimes it's hard.
Right. And I think it takes a village. I mean, for you hear that saying often, but like the more support you have in the profession, the more people you have behind you that keep pushing you. Like, because it could have been very easy, like you said, when I forget earlier, you were saying how you kind of thought, is this it for me? Like, do I just go back and coach high school ball? Or like,
right.
You could have been so easy to just kind of say, I'm tapped out, man. I'm done 100%. With it. But if the more people behind you that know what you want to do and what you really want to strive for, that can, when you have those days, right, that can kind of push you forward, I think, goes a long way for sure.
No, I agree 100%. 100%.
So something that you mentioned, which, it's very striking, because like the NFL is a grind from a football perspective, from a length of the season perspective.
Right.
But you also know when you're going to have time off, and when you're off, right. Versus college. I mean, at the MAC level even, and not saying that the MAC level is low. I mean, that's big time college football. It is hard to get a coaching job at the MAC level, the FCS level, the Division II level, Division III level. Like, people don't understand how hard this business is. Like, you're a 1%er when it comes to it. But at the same time, like, it's not like you're making $500,000 as an assistant coach working in the MAC, but you're putting in 120 hours, a week, and then you're recruiting on top of it. So, like, one thing that really interests me is you may spend more time on football now that you're in the NFL, but I almost feel like even with the longer season, there's more actual time off. When you're off, you're off. Whereas in college football, it's to the point where it's never ending with the recruiting.
Right. It's never
tell
ending.
Tell me the difference. And because you were a great recruiter. I mean, you were fantastic, Tony.
Thank
you got players that Northern Illinois probably shouldn't get. And you did a great job evaluating guys who were overlooked. But part of that is because you never stopped. You were always on the recruiting grind. Tell me the difference, not only from your family and work-life balance perspective, but just the biggest difference between college, where you have to recruit, and the NFL, where it's just football, football, football.
Right. The one thing that I never wanted to get, I don't want anybody to mistake, like, you still relationships in the NFL. You still develop a bond with the players and the coaches and guys that you're working with every day. And in college, obviously, it's different relationships because you're recruiting them from high school. You're dealing with their high school coaches, parents, getting to know the kid, and then seeing them, hopefully they come to school, and you're dealing, you see the parents at the games and all those guys. So those relationships are different. But this day and age, so especially because I've been in the NFL before, and then was going to college. I was trying to get, seeing where I was going with college jobs, and coach, I didn't get jobs because, like, you can't recruit, you're an NFL guy. And I'm like, who says I can't, give me an opportunity. So when you gave me the compliment, which I appreciate 100%, I never wanted to be labeled as, oh, this guy's just a football guy, which in my opinion, is an awesome. That's a compliment.
Right.
No, I can recruit. I can work hard. I can evaluate talent. I can make relationships. I'm a people person. I'll openly say that. I like people. I like relationships. I like talk. That's the kind of things I like. So I made it a point to be like, hey, I'm going to be a grinder in recruiting and still keep up on my football, on my own time when it was in college. Whereas in the NFL, I still believe in the relationships. You have the players and people have to trust you. They have to know what you're doing and work hard and still have that, trust relationship. So I think that's super important. But yeah, in the NFL, when, in college, your grades, they're here in the summer. The NFL, everybody, they train on their own in the summer. So those are the biggest differences, but the grind of the long season. But then, you add the bowl games in college and play, all that stuff. So it really doesn't, and it doesn't feel, it's, how it is when you're in the season, you're just going and you're grinding and the adrenaline's pumping, but it's definitely a different it's definitely different work, NFL in the day, you're talking scheme, you're talking those kind of things in off season college, you're talking about, all right, where am I going to recruit? I'm all right. I'm going on the road for 3 weeks. I got to map out. I'm terrible with directions. I got to Waze. Where am I going? Which makes sense. All right. I don't want to be going to this side of Chicago, then have to go to the suburbs. I want to do everything, this day here. And then you're going and you're looking constantly, and Twitter has completely changed. You never want to miss a kid, especially in your area. So you're dealing, I'm looking at O lineman. Hey, make sure. Okay, I think this kid's a pretty good O-lineman. Pass to the O-line coach. Hey, what about this kid? All right, I got to check this kid out. And then you got to communicate with him. And then, like you said, coming from the MAC, okay, is he going to get a Big Ten offer? If he's not getting a Big Ten offer, are we going to steal? All right, is it an FCS kid? Is this kid an FCS kid? No, I think this kid's a MAC. I think this kid we can get, I think this kid's the next level. So you have to be able to do that. And then, Thomas Hammock was he was great having discussions, evaluations. He really was on it in the recruiting because he's another guy that came from the NFL. It was in the NFL, and he was at Wisconsin. The game completely changed. He didn't even have a Twitter when he first got to NIU. He's like, I got to get it. Yeah, we were all like, yeah, you got to get to, Twitter. That's the key. So definitely try to learn as much from different people and try to establish, hey, what does this guy do? How does he do it? Okay, I'm not going to steal somebody's idea or how they are. I'm going to just have my own little twist to it. And at Tennessee, I really learned how to, learn the recruiting aspect and relationships and how important that is. And also, I believe, you can't have an agenda. You cannot have an agenda. I try my best not to.
I mean, and I don't know if necessarily it's how, wanted to sound or, but it kind of almost sounds like, and we've talked about this too, again, in the college game, because of recruiting, because you're always worried about, finding this kid or who's going to find this kid before you, who's talking to this kid if I'm not talking to this kid. Like almost a level of paranoia creeps into your mind at the college level, right? When it comes to recruiting. So now at the NFL level, do you find that when you go home, you're kind of just able to unload and like you can just be like you're done. You don't have to think about those type of things, right? And so like,
right.
Is that kind of like maybe a big difference?
That's it. In so many ways, I want to say yes, because you're right. Oh, that I missed this kid in my area. I'm from New Jersey. How do you not know about this kid? And he's going to go to a rival school in the MAC. Well, it's also needs. There's so many different things that go into it in recruiting. But then you sit in a meeting with Kevin O'Connell and he starts talking offense and quarterback play, and then you say to yourself, "This guy is brilliant." So when you say you go home, I go home and I'm like, well, there's 500 things that I could be doing or getting better than or learning this offense or doing this thing. So those as a coach, as a competitor, you're like, what am I doing? Relaxing. But then you're like, well, I got to be you have to like force yourself. So you just got to like shut your brain. But you can always watch film. I always get better. Oh, there's always something, like I said, as a competitor, and I'm not saying that to boast. I'm saying that as like, those are the things that come into your brain. Well, I got to get better at this. I can get better at this. There's so many. Why don't I watch this? Let's evaluate this guy. What can he do better? So it never shuts off, which is good because I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't have, who knows?
Right.
I don't,
So
I don't have any money. So,
So, I mean, it's not like, no, recruiting obviously is not the thing that I have to be worrying about now, but obviously, like you said, you have so much other stuff that just because of who you are and what you want to strive to be in your career and the levels you want to reach, like you just can't ever sit around on your, you always have to be grinding. So that makes sense. Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
And learning from other people, learning. And then like, what happens if can this guy go back to college and recruit? Like nobody knows. Clint, I appreciate that comment, but it's not like it's out there. right? You know what I mean? It's not like,
It is out there.
you
You were named one of the you were one of maybe the only MAC coaches named to the top
Right.
recruiting list,
So you
man.
want to be able
So
to,
I
you
mean,
never want to be, players always talk about, I never want to be labeled. And well, same with, in my opinion, same with coaches. Again, I'm just speaking candidly because that's all it is. Again, no,
yeah.
but you never want to be labeled. I got to be a grinder that can do different things.
Yeah. Good.
Do,
Good. Go ahead, Clint.
Yeah, no. Not having to deal with Twitter. No, I mean, do you still do anything with Twitter? Because, dude, the last time we were together, I think, was at the Northern Illinois facility.
Yeah.
State championship games. Or no. It was COVID year. So it was really just a conference championship.
Right.
And we would have 2 words in, and then all of a sudden you're back over on your phone on Twitter the whole time.
Right.
Tell me, that transition, because you don't have to deal with Twitter. Like I can't keep on top of my own Twitter. Like I can't imagine you as a coach. Like where do you draw the line of every random kid's reaching out to me versus I only want to recruit certain kids versus now I don't have to deal with Twitter. Just like, do you go on Twitter anymore? Like just to
see where you're tweeting, just to see what you're tweeting. No, I probably lost. It's funny. I probably lost like 5,000 followers since going, like, just because it makes sense, but no, not really. But yeah, I think, but to go back to your point about, hey, you don't want to miss a kid. Yeah. If somebody shoots you a huddle, you got to watch them. And then if it's somebody that you trust or know, whether it be a high school coach or so many friends of, hey, this, my buddy's son is a really good quarterback. I think he's getting overlooked. Well, yeah, I'm gonna watch him. You're gonna watch him. You're gonna blink him for a couple minutes with the huddle with the and you can just do that on your, like you said, just do it on your phone. So, no, it's definitely time. It's definitely, and you have, in my opinion, you have to, because you never want to miss a kid. And people do, a million things, but hey, he's not for us, or yeah, this kid's really good. Let's get to know him a little bit better. Let's see where he's at. And then you got to see, this kid's a no-brainer. Is he going to get an SEC offer?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I want to go back. I would like to go back to your Florida Atlantic and the time there, and that conversation with Lane Kiffin and saying you're going to move into would you like to move into director of football operations and your mindset for that? Because I think that mindset of just, what, head coach is asking me to do this, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to take something from it, right? I'm going to learn from this. I think that mindset is something that a lot of people, probably need to hear and probably take on, because there's a lot of times those type of jobs come up and some people are like, well, I'm a ball coach. Why would I want to do that?
Right.
Why don't you, just talk to us a little bit more about that transition going into that. How did you even know where to start in terms of how to start, prepping for travel and for, hotel rooms and different things like that? Like what was your whole game plan there as you started transitioning into that role?
No, that's great. And it happened it was late July. So it was before, right before camp. And the best thing about that, and I loved being on the offense side of the ball with Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane, because I got 2 masterminds in college football, and I'm learning a different offense, the up tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, receivers. So I was all into the offensive side of the ball. And then, and like I said, from now until my last day, whoever the head coach is, I'm whatever they ask, I'm going to do. So whether my role is assistant receivers for Keenan McCardell, my job is to make Keenan McCardell the best wide receiver coach in the NFL. And I mean that whatever he needs, that's my job. Whatever the offensive coordinator needs, Wes Phillips, whatever Kevin O'Connell, at that time, whatever Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss needed, I was going to do. And he was good. He was like, I know you want to coach, but this will help you. And I'm thinking to myself, it's Lane Kiffin, it's Monty Kiffin. Yeah. Yes, whatever you guys need. And it gave me an opportunity to bond with Lane before, like I never had before, because I was, just on the offense side of the ball. So it was really cool. But as for, there was a kid, Hunter Greer, who he went with Lane to Ole Miss and then decided to get into real estate. He wanted to be in operation. I think that kid was a stud. And JJ Doherty, who's at NC State, was another guy that was in operations and also recruiting. And Ryan Abel was another operations guy. So we established a team of 4, and I just brought them. I said, listen, and I was like, hey, I'm going to do everything I can, but I just need, and you guys are all going to have a role, And whatever you think, so I would go to other people like, hey, if they're asking something that's coming from me, which essentially is coming from Lane, so let's all work together. So whether it be academics, the travel, you don't realize how much goes into like when you fly, you have to get everybody, all these things, the hotels and, drinks and dealing with meals. Wilson Love was the strength coach. He's on it. He's at Oregon now. He's on it. So he's the assistant head coach and he's on it. So we're dealing with things that that you don't even think you have to deal with. But like I said, it made me see the whole operation, boosters, talking with boosters and talking with all, liaisons to the team. And of course it's Lane Kiffin. So people, are involved, just being honest, So, and then just being able to pick his brain minimally, but, knowing when to pick, when to talk to him and then the recruiting aspect. He's a great recruiter. How we did official visits, setting up official visits, doing the recruiting, seeing where people are going on the road. And then I was one of the 10 on the road at the end of the season. So then he trusted me beyond. So I had it was a very unique, and I did the CAI, the game management for Lane on the sideline during the game. So I had a headset on, the headset rules, but I was able to wear a headset. So then I learned the game management aspect, which I brought to NIU. We brought that. So, NIU were 22 of 26 on fourth down this past year. We won, 8 games. We won by 2 points or less. I'm not saying me. I'm saying that was other stuff that the game management aspect brought with Lane. So that year broadened my eyes, my career. And in my brain, he was like, hey, you can sit on any offensive meeting you want, whatever. I was like, oh, awesome. There's no shot. You're so much stuff is going on. You don't realize it's so much. So that was the only negative of it. Can be like, I was like, all right, the first week I was like, all right, I'm in offensive meetings. We're fine. I was just kept getting dragged down. I'm like, there's no way. Mm-hmm. But I approached the DFO just like a coach. I was there just as much, to try to be organized and get that thing going. It was cool. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, there is so much that goes in, with things you take for granted from the staff's perspective. I know because, because like you said, drinks that are going to be available, meals that you're going to have before departures, meals that you're going to have on, when you arrive or before you leave a football game. I mean, there's so many crazy things.
Buses,
security,
buses from leaving Oklahoma to get on a plane. I was like, just thinking of different ways. I was like, why would we all wait and then go? My whole mindset was whatever I could do to make Lane Kiffin happy, right? So we got buses to just, once the bus filled, it loaded the plane. So when the Lane Kiffin got on the plane, it was 20 minutes no matter what, we were leaving. You know what I mean? Why would we all wait? And then you go to the airport and then you wait in line again to go through security. And I'm like, whatever I can to,
Yeah.
They're like, this is the way we've always done it. That just doesn't resonate with me. I said, okay, if that's the best way, then that's the best way. But if there's a better way, let's challenge each other and figure it out.
Yeah. That's something we talked about that last week. Yeah. We talked about that. People talk about, this is how they've always done it, or this is how we've always done it. And people kind of fear to almost, step outside that every once in a while. And learn something new, and you have to, with the way football continues to evolve. You can't really just be stuck in your old ways, I guess, and things like that. And that's really not even football. That's probably everything.
Train it, test it, trust it. Train it, test it,
trust it. I like that. Did you coin that, or was that a Lane thing?
No, Ben Kodwika, our assistant special teams coach, he coined it, and in the NFL, special teams happens, we're involved. We're like, the runner,
Oh God. Because you don't have a full scout team.
No. So you're involved with special teams more and more and more. So Matt Daniels, our special teams coordinator, and then Ben Kodwika, our assistant special teams coordinator, 2 great minds. And hey, they ask you, hey, can you do that? Yeah, whatever you need. Hey, I need you to ball carry here. Okay, I need you to throw. Whatever you need. So then you just surround those guys, and they touch the whole team, like the head coach, because special teams, everybody's involved. So just try to learn different things from those guys. It's been awesome too.
Well, dude, you got to, that's like getting a shot in the league, man. You've played in the NFL now.
A great long snapper. People doubt that. Great long snapper.
Hey, could you be activated in an emergency?
I like that. Maybe.
You gotta have one snap in there.
No shot. You realize really quick when you're going, like the faster you go, the faster they go. So it's like, hey, no. And when they're running at you, just stand still because they're athletic enough to move. When you try to move, you get plowed over.
Oh, I
So
bet.
it's yeah. It's fun.
One thing one thing that's been coming up lately is as football, as the conferences are looking to evolve, or I guess college football is looking to evolve, right? And I think you can provide maybe a unique experience or some input on this just because of your time at NIU. I've heard recently, Alabama's problems, Clemson's problems, Ohio State's problems aren't the same as the problems that are facing, NIU or Bowling Green or, Middle Tennessee State. But that doesn't mean that things don't need to, change for everybody at the Division I level. I guess what were just some of the things that you thought about, like when you were at NIU that maybe you experienced, that maybe you thought maybe this could be, we could look at this about doing something different, or, as now you talk with NIL, now you talk with the transfer portal, all these different things. I guess as your time when you were spending at college and you were at the NIU, just what were some things on your mind, that you thought maybe this needs to be looked at, or maybe we should be looking at changing this, or,
Right.
how can we do this better?
Recruiting calendar stuff,
Right.
like
the recruiting calendars, it changed. It has changed even in my 3 years back to NIU. It's changed a little bit. It's so hard with the transfer portal because at NIU we got Rocky Lombardi, transfer quarterback, Clint Rakovich, transfer running back, Miles Joyner, transfer tight end. We've had some good success with transfers, and to me, you said before, different opportunities, different jobs came along for me, and had the opportunity to take something that was a better opportunity at that time. So I'm okay. Me personally, the transfer portal, to me, that's okay. I would like guys to be able to have a home before they went. So there are guys that are not out of school, because as coaches, as educators, as people who are role models, their goal is to graduate your players. So let's get these guys into a school. Let's figure that aspect out. I don't have the answer. I hate to be a problem, bring up a problem with having the answer, but I'm okay with the transfer portal. The NIL, we didn't deal with it much at NIU. To be honest with you, a couple of guys, local restaurants did a podcast or did that stuff, but more, it's great having the opportunity to get paid for what you do. That's another part of our job is college, intern, paid intern, because their calendar, their daily clock is so hard that you don't have time for part-time jobs, but, in my opinion. So again, I'm okay with that. I don't, the SEC, when I was in the SEC, we didn't have those. It wasn't there. It wasn't then. The one thing I love about the MAC is the MACtion. Right. To me, go 8, have your 4 non-conference, but go 8 MACtion games. Tuesday, who wouldn't watch Tuesday? Where the weather is relatively nicer, instead of November. That's to me a good opportunity there. But I love the MACtion, and then we went to Georgia Tech and were able to beat Georgia Tech. So we played Michigan. Michigan, they were legit this year. So that next year NIU's got Kentucky, Vanderbilt at home, Tulsa, and Eastern Illinois. So they get, the non-conference games are awesome, great opportunity. When you're recruiting MAC kids, like, hey, we're going to play the big house. That's awesome, right? Yeah, we're going to play Notre Dame. We just played at Georgia Tech. We beat Georgia Tech. So I think, and to me, it's whatever you make of it. Let's go and have an opportunity. And that Thomas Hammock, NIU in general has that mindset. Hand played there, and then you go. Then it's a great place, a great football place, great tradition. There's tons of great players there. The state of Illinois, fantastic, and we were able to recruit. We didn't go crazy out of state. We went where we had connections and relationships, which I think was awesome.
Yeah. Did the nonstop grind of the recruiting ever get to you? Like, I know you loved it, and like you said, you're a relationships guy. But like, it's to the point where, and you're talking from the MAC level, where you weren't dealing with the big NIL. I mean, there's kids getting millions of dollars now. Right. You didn't have to deal with that, but you're still dealing with this calendar that's nonstop. And like, did it ever get to you? Were you ever like, this has to stop at some point?
No. It really honestly didn't, because it's like still exciting. Like, did I find this diamond in the rough? It's exciting. It's the competitive nature that we got when we were players that we no longer get as we're getting older and older and older. So it's like that's the drive. That's the competitive. And you don't even know who you're competing against. You're just competing because you don't know another coach, you don't know any of that. You're just like competing and get to know a kid. Like, hey, did I find something? And then you just get excited. This kid fits exactly what we want to do. And then you meet the kid, you're like, this kid's awesome. And then, so it's fun to recruit. And then everybody's got a different story, whether it's, the parents, the high school coach, the player. So you get to hear different stories and know two players alike and all those kind of things. Then you build them with the players that in their class. Then they come on campus and you see the relationships build. My biggest thing when I was at NIU, I wanted Tyrese Ritchie to be just as happy as Cole Tucker scored a touchdown as if Trayvon Rudolph scored a touchdown. You wanted those guys to just build that relationship, because my college teammates are my best friends in the world. And then the guys I've coached with have become my best friends in the world. So it's like you want to just share that information, because when you play Division III football, I had a position coach. We don't have meetings. You have one or two coaches. So I was like, besides my dad, I never had these guys telling me or helping me or advising me. I'm like, so I'm going to advise you. Hey, it's all about relationships. You're going to be in so-and-so's wedding. You're going to be there when their child is born. Like that's what keeps you going.
I wonder if it almost sounds kind of like, I think I've had some idea of this, but like kind of what we're talking about is the same problems for the group of five, maybe aren't necessarily the same problems as the Power Five, because the NIL hasn't really bled into that, right? And certain things haven't, like the tampering. Well, now, I won't say that, because tampering probably has bled down into the group of five, because that's probably where it's happening at a greater proportion almost. Guys are going down in there. But, do you think like that, the lack, the NIL, because I don't want to say that's not a good thing. I think it is a good thing. Now, maybe where it's at today, where it's going is not necessarily what people had in mind for it, right? Like essentially buying these players to come to your university. But do you think that almost makes the group of five, or being at NIU, still just, I guess, a little bit more even pure than, I guess, what some of the Power Five is having to deal with? Because like you said, you're still just the hunt. You're in it for the hunt. You're in it for the chase, the competitive. There's still some things like that. It's still almost like coaching ball in Power Five 15, 20 years ago. Or maybe not. There's things happening with boosters at the Power Five level, probably behind closed doors. But I don't know. I think it's curious. I'm just curious to know. Because I think there are some differences between the Power Five and Group of Five, obviously, that that you're going to be experiencing when you're at those levels. It was interesting. I just was looking to hear, kind of what your mindset was on that and what you thought.
No, I think you hear a lot about it. I really don't know too much about it, because I never had to deal with, we never had to deal with the NIL, and then being back in the NFL, you don't really get into. I don't really know what is going on in those dynamics. I do love the group. The MAC especially, they got a chip on their shoulder. The player. So when you say like that is exciting, because I think I have a chip on my shoulder when it comes to coaching in this profession. Again, I don't mean that egotistically at all. I mean that you gotta grind this thing out and do as best you can. So I think the MAC player, especially at Northern, they call it the hard way. So those kind of things, and I can only associate with that. When we were at FAU, it was the same kind of thing. The group of five conferences, say those kids had it because they wanted to be at Florida State, or Miami. At that time, Central Florida knows group of five, but they're rolling. So they had a chip on the shoulder, and then Lane did a great job getting transfers, to come to FAU. So I think, there's so many success stories with the transfers and all that. And then with the NIL, I think benefit. You got to benefit from it. The outside world doesn't realize how much they. What's that?
I said the schools have benefited off their name, image, and likeness for years.
Right. Yeah, and I just think the grind of what they go through, the players go through daily. There is no time. I played Division III, right? I coached junior high basketball in the winter and lacrosse in the spring once I had my 60 credits, and that paid. I couldn't even, there's no way, that was and I worked and I bounced I bounced. So it's like these players can't do that. They have to, and I know what they get, but that's just, my opinion. I don't have all the answers with that, but
no, I agree. I think NIL, especially because I remember back, he's in the league now, but we had a running back at Vanderbilt, and I just thought about how he should be able to make money off of his name, image, and likeness, because he was probably our best player on our team. right?
Right.
And your shelf at running back is so small, right?
Right.
How are you going to get to that second contract? And even if you do get a second contract in the NFL, like how much are you really going to make? So like capitalize that on that while you're at the college level, right?
Yes.
Like I think that you need to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have no problem with that. I just didn't, I was just curious about the difference, I guess,
good.
between the Group of Five and Power Five and things like
Right.
that.
If I went back to the Power 5 or SEC, or I maybe have a better feeling and understanding, but right now I'm like, hey, it seems to be a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, as the market evolves, the market will change. Some kids are going to pan out, and some kids, probably just as many aren't or more. And
Right.
it's going to change how people, invest their money and the NIL works. One question that I have is, so, going from NFL to college to NFL, brief stint in high school, all these, tell me about the work-life balance at each level that you've been at and how it's different, especially from the college level to the NFL level.
Right. Well, I think right now the college level, like we talked about, especially being at the MAC, the recruiting departments are the coaches. So, you know what I mean? SEC, when I was at Tennessee, we had a recruiting department, and they say, hey, here's the top 20 wide receivers. Take a look. It didn't matter where they're from. Well, for us, as the receiver coach at NIU, you found them, and then you found your area, and you had to go through that. And it was just like, okay, yeah, this kid's really good. He's from Texas. Well, we don't recruit Texas. We don't have a connection to Texas. So that made it easier for way Coach Hammett did it. Hey, we're recruiting in-state. I had New Jersey, and then we'll recruit the 6-hour radius counting Florida and Atlanta. We added those. So that aspect was easier with the balance of that. You're not just chasing great players all over the country, because to come in, it's all about relationships. Okay, hey, I'm from New Jersey. One of my best friends is this kid's high school football coach. We can get this kid,
right?
As opposed to, hey, yeah, this kid's from Pennsylvania. He's really good, but I don't know them. So I think that helped out. So, but then like I said, the work-life balance. I'm moving. We move around a lot, so that takes a lot out of it, and then. Just the daily things of finding all those things. The NFL helps you out a lot, a great deal with that, which is helpful. You get more opportunities to meet people in bigger city, Minneapolis area, which is awesome. We were in DeKalb, which is an hour outside of Chicago, so it's just different living and lifestyles. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Lammers, sorry. I was calling him Lammers our first episode, pronouncing his name wrong the whole time. He never even said anything. I had to wait to look in the comments section. But so is there anything that you would say? Well, actually, I have two questions. First one is, what would people be most surprised about? And because you're probably really in touch with this, having gone to college to NFL, what would people, the outsider who feels they have a great grasp on college football, what would they be most surprised about the biggest difference between the college level and the NFL level and your day-to-day approach? Just like anything, what's the biggest difference? What would be the most surprising to the common fan?
You mean as play or as a coach?
As a coach, just like, the day in and day out, the relationships. It could be just, you're kind of like a mentor figure in college, maybe not as much in the NFL. Maybe it's how, players look at you. How can this guy help me stay in the league? I mean, just like, what would the biggest difference be between, for you, or, maybe something that would give someone a little shock value between college and the NFL?
No, that's a good question. I do think the relationship piece is still there in both. They have to be able to trust you, and you have to have, you have to be able to have a relationship, because adversity is going to hit. In college, you are way more involved, for lack of better words, with their day-to-day. You know what their major is. You know where they're from. You talk about their family because you've met their parents on a recruiting trip, and, all those kind of things. Whereas in the NFL, you're not. Until it depends on how long you're there with players. And, so I just got, when I was at Jacksonville, it was 4 years. Yeah, I felt like I had that, but it took some time. So you're way more involved. The one thing that Ham did, especially when COVID hit, we were at every workout the players did in the weight room or strength or conditioning wise, coaches were at. So in 2020, I had just moved to receivers coach. I was there for a year, tight ends, inside receivers, moved the receiver coach. I said, all right, I'm going to take advantage of this, thing outside the box, right? Okay, when the receivers are lifting, I'm going to lift. I lifted with them. Mohamed Toure and Billy Dozier were my Dozier. I call him Dozier. Were my lifting. That was my group of 3, right? I lifted with them. So upper body felt great, normal. It's squat. I'm like, all right, I'm squat. I didn't go. And it wasn't like they're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that even if I could.
I'm old.
But you see, then they, that built the relationship aspect. And I was like, I'm not just going to stand here and watch them lift for an hour. I'm going to get in there and lift. Now, obviously, I didn't do the conditioning because that's different. But, I lifted, and then that just developed. I'm spotting them, they're spotting me, and you just develop the relationship. Like, okay. And that group, super close to me. I still keep in touch. It was hard to leave them. It was hard to leave. And it was hard, it was the right decision. But it was a hard decision because you built these relationships with these kids. Whereas in the NFL, we don't go to their lifting session. We have a great staff that handles all that, and I wouldn't even think of jumping on the bench with you. You know what I mean? So that's the difference in there. But it's just, and then here it's their job. So they take. The players take the coaching because they know it's going to help them, whereas college players are always like, is it? No, yes, trust me, football wise. Whereas NFL guys see the bigger picture now.
When did you get to Minnesota?
Vikings?
Yeah.
February.
So, have you had a chance to really start building the relationships with those guys up there with your receiving core and different things like that?
It started now. We have OTA number 3. It started now personally in the room because you're dealing with them, and then now that we're running plays and talking and doing technique. And Keenan McCardell was here last year. He stayed on staff. So the first meeting during phase 1 or phase 2, I was the only new person in the room because the rookies hadn't come in. So it was like, okay, they all knew, they were all, so that was a transition for, being a new staff. Keenan was already there. All the players everybody was back. Like I said, I was the only one in the room. So now it's starting to develop more and more each day. And then, you just have to have a good balance. Like, hey, here's what I saw. And you're talking to you talk. Hey, what'd you see here? I saw this. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Hey, great. You see a clip. Hey, this is a great route. Here's why, those kind of things. So you're talking to them more than anything. And again, I'm the assistant receiver coach. I'm gonna do whatever I can to make them, help Keenan, get them better, get myself better, learn. I take notes every time, from players talking, the head coach talking, the offense coordinator talking, everybody, I'm constantly learning.
Is it intimidating to walk into an NFL office with all these players? These guys are making millions of dollars. They're famous. They kind of, they don't, but they can do what they want, especially some of them. And you're walking in as this guy who came from Northern Illinois.
Right.
And they're supposed to take what you say as gospel. Is that intimidating? And then how do you prove that you are somebody that can help them and help them develop?
Yeah, I think you have to trust yourself. Be like, I remember because it's, this is my second stint in the NFL. I'm a little older now. I remember in 2013, one of the receivers, Tony Clements, came up to me and said, "Hey, Tone, you're a pro too." And it still resonates with me, but and he was being like, because he probably saw maybe I was younger, then maybe I messed up. He's like, "Tone, you're a pro too." So I thought that was awesome. Tony Clements said that always that was 2013. He said that to me, and I haven't seen Tony in a long time, but. And again, not egotistically, you can't be, players know right away if somebody has a gender ego before anybody else. So you just, you ease into it. Like anything else, it's like when you're going and meeting a friend of a friend, you're not going to go hardcore and be like, you just ease into things and be like, okay. And then let them kind of see your coaching style, learn, see how they learn all those different things. But then you just say, hey, you're here for a reason.
That's incredible. Because I never thought of it like that. I guess I had never coached in the NFL. I never had that opportunity. But I've always wondered that because when you're in college, running scout team, it's like, here, you get over here, do this, right. Do that. And I can't imagine running scout team in the NFL, telling some guy who's making $1 million, who knows more about the NFL than probably I do at that point,
Right.
just how do you, commanding the room. So that's very interesting to hear that. And I think,
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible advice. You are a
Incredible
pro
advice.
too.
That's the biggest question mark. You talk about time. Can somebody command the room? Well, yeah, I can command the room, but when it's my time, when I'm supposed to be commanding the room, if it's not, I have to be the best next man commanding the room. But commanding the room is, and uncomfortable equals great growth. I truly believe that. Getting put in uncomfortable positions, and then you're going to grow from that, and then you have to take every opportunity to do that. So things that make you uncomfortable, you're going to get better and better, and keep working at it. But then you over prepare. So when we say like, hey, you can relax. Well, no, if in Jacksonville on Thursdays, I presented 3rd down and 2-minute to the offense. So Tuesday night and Wednesday night, I slept in the office because I was like, I need to be on my game. So, that was because you have to prepare. You never want to stand up and not be prepared for anything that comes your way. So those kind of different things were, try to be detailed, and so there's no right or wrong. It's just how that was me, or that is me. That's how it is. So it's
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well,
That's awesome.
I mean, Tony, I mean, this is fascinating to me because most of the people we talk to, like I've been in that office or like, I've been in their position, but like I've never been in the NFL. Lammers, did you ever do anything in the NFL?
No, sir. Nope.
Yeah. So like, so this is like fascinating to me. I mean, we could go forever and we are running out of time, and I know you have OTAs and all of that stuff. But Lammers, do you have any parting questions or
I mean, I think it's always good to when you have these guests on and they talk to us about their path. I mean, a lot of dudes out there, a lot of females out there want to get into this profession, want to go through that grind, want to climb the ladder. And I mean, your story probably puts that on display more than most in terms of just the will that it takes. And I guess if you would just share some, wisdom, I guess, or, anything that you can in terms of people that are looking to get into this profession or want to be in the profession for the long haul, what would you tell them, or what does it take, and things like that?
No, I think I'll always go back to there's no job too big or too small. I always go back to a lot of people can learn football. You can learn football, get better at football, but you have to be a great person. You have to be a person that other people want to be around all the time. That doesn't mean change who you are, but hey, when in doubt, just do the right thing. Do the right thing, because it is a competitive field. And then Jimmy Jackson taught me this a long time ago. If you put your name on something, I make mistakes. I draw the pass game. I'm gonna make a mistake, but if you put your name on something, be proud of that. And so don't just hurry through. Hey, no, I'm gonna try to do something right. So if you put your name on something as a young person coming in this profession, that doesn't mean you're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. But it's like, okay, keep going that, and then just learn, ask questions, and don't think it's hard to be the smartest person in the room. So if you think you're the smartest person, exactly. So you just got to keep learning from other people, and it's a grind, but hopefully it pays off. I always say it's not like we're in med school and then we're going to become a doctor. There's no guarantee in this profession, but you just grind, and then take the good with the bad, and develop relationships and enjoy the process.
Sure. Awesome.
Enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process.
That was something I liked. Game days more than the process.
But you're doing it. You're the best at what you do. You guys are the best at what you do right now, and that's awesome. And you're helping so many, so many coaches, so many players, so many people. It's awesome. Really is.
Wow, man. This is incredible to talk to you in this setting. We have a lot of stories, a lot of history. Tony, I just have so much respect for you and what you've done and your journey. And I knew all the places you had been, but I didn't know the story behind it. And just your perseverance, and it just like, I have even more respect for you. And obviously I respected the hell out of you before. But I'm really excited to see what your next step is. I know you're not thinking about the next step. You're trying to be the best you can be at the job that you're doing. But, when I think back, and I know Lammers found this fascinating too, just like when the coach asks you to go and be the DFO, like, what do you say? Like, I might've had a meltdown, and it looks like what you have done, you use that to the best of your ability, and it's put you in a position to be able to accept so many other roles moving forward. So, you know, I think a lot of young coaches can really take that away from this. Man, but can't thank you enough for coming on. And you know, people like you and your story. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't leave before I said this. My wife, huge Vikings fan, Justin Jefferson jersey for Christmas. You have to tell her, you know, she's all about the Vikings. She's all about Justin Jefferson. So
love it. Skull.
Yep, that's right. Skull. I hear that all fall, man. I hear it all fall. So
love it. That's
go Vikings,
awesome.
Baby.
That is awesome.
Well, we're gonna come up to a game and
definitely.
And then we'll go back to the house and shoot our episode number 2 of Coach's Corner with Tony, the scenario Sorrentino.
I was waiting for that. Yeah.
Oh, yes. All right, my man. I appreciate it. We'll let you get back to work, but really appreciate your time and your story, man. You have an
appreciate
awesome
you guys,
day.
man. Great time.
Appreciate it.